Да ну нахуй, пизда, Бурыч, смотри.
Охуеть! Вот летит дрон.
A sudden strike plunged parts of Russia's border regions into darkness. The significance lay in which systems failed and the consequences that followed.
Разъебывают, пидорас! Охуеть!
Belgorod and nearby settlements lost power after a missile attack. Russian outlets described damaged energy facilities after the strike. They pointed to substations and a thermal power plant. A similar blackout was mentioned in Oryol. Residents there posted about blasts near a thermal station. Russian local media described an air raid alert. They said a missile strike followed, then the power failed. Local Telegram channels described strikes on key power equipment. One channel named substations as the apparent targets. Another channel mentioned a thermal power plant near Belgorod. Russian media repeated those local channel claims. They said a missile hit the Storozhova substation in Belgorod. They also suggested that other nodes may have been damaged. A Telegram channel said a power cut occurred across the city. Another local channel said the Luch plant was struck. The outage spread beyond Belgorod into nearby settlements. Messages also mentioned Shebekino losing electricity after the strike. Local channels connected the outage to the substation hit. They also linked it to the reported Luch plant damage. Belgorod shelling and the blackout were later addressed publicly. Belgorod Governor Vyacheslav Gladkov posted a confirmation online. He said the infrastructure damage caused the power interruption. He added preliminary reports showed no casualties. Gladkov described serious damage at one infrastructure facility. He said emergency crews were working at the scene. He said specialists were clarifying the full consequences. His Telegram post framed the situation as still developing. At the same time, claims spread about missiles reaching Oryol. Local messaging also discussed an attack on power generation. Those posts described explosions near a thermal power station. They said the blasts were followed by utility failures. Residents in Oryol described problems with electricity and water. Pro-Ukrainian channels amplified the footage and comments online. Those channels argued that the thermal station area was targeted again. They framed the incident as another successful disruption of services. The language was celebratory and openly partisan in tone. The same accounts pointed to visible flashes near the station. They linked the flashes to subsequent power interruptions. They also tied water disruptions to the electrical failure. A local Russian Telegram channel echoed the Oryol claims. It was written that the local thermal power plant was under attack. Around the same period, Russia struck Ukraine overnight Friday. Ukrainian officials said drones and ballistic missiles were involved. They said most strikes focused on Kyiv and the surrounding districts. Ukrainian authorities reported that at least 4 people were killed. They also reported that 24 people were injured during the assault. Officials said strikes hit residential areas and critical infrastructure. Ukrainian officials said at least 20 buildings were damaged. They said Kyiv suburbs also suffered damage from the attack. Ukrainian authorities said Qatar's embassy building was hit. President Volodymyr Zelensky said outages affected many districts. He said heating and water systems were disrupted widely. Officials warned risks rose as temperatures dropped sharply overnight. They reported readings near -9 degrees Celsius. That cold increased the danger for civilians lacking heat or power. Some unrelated lines appeared in the information stream afterward. They offered no clear facts or verifiable context. The phrasing suggested noise rather than a usable update. In a documentary account, that material adds confusion. It does not clarify timing, location, or responsible parties. It also does not match the surrounding factual reporting. For clarity, the focus returns to sourced claims. The next developments centered on Kremlin anxiety and rumors. Those claims relied on Telegram sources and opposition commentary. Attention then shifted to Venezuela and Moscow's reaction narratives. Some accounts claimed a United States operation unfolded in Venezuela. They claimed Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro was arrested. Those claims were presented as a trigger for Kremlin paranoia. They also framed it as a warning about betrayal. The storyline argued that Putin feared similar internal treason. It claimed he was preparing purges inside his circle. The central driver was the fear of insiders turning. The narrative appeared designed to alarm and provoke. The Telegram channel Kremlin Snuffbox carried those purge claims. It said it was citing sources inside top leadership. The channel claimed people near Putin would face screening. It described checks for disloyalty and suspected traitors. The stated goal was to prevent a Maduro-style betrayal. The channel suggested access to Putin's body would be restricted. It implied security services would lead internal vetting. It portrayed paranoia as a functional policy choice. It offered no verifiable evidence beyond asserted sourcing. Still, it spread widely across political Telegram. The same channel also mentioned a religious element in timing. It claimed Patriarch Kirill Gundyayev would offer a prayer. The channel said the prayer would focus on punishing traitors. It tied that message to Christmas Day symbolism. Russian opposition politician Dmitry Gudkov commented publicly on Facebook. He said the rumor fit broader signs of tightening control. He said purges seemed likely even without insider access. His comment framed the moment as predictable authoritarian behavior. He pointed to fear as a common driver in closed systems. He treated the Telegram claims as plausible signals. The narrative then broadened to Trump and international law talk. It said debate exists over Trump's role in conflict framing. It argued that Putin's paranoia was intensifying regardless of debate. It referenced an upcoming Manhattan trial as a catalyst. It suggested courtroom images would be hard to ignore. It compared the spectacle to past dictator downfalls. The point was the psychological impact on insulated leadership. It argued that fear can drive preemptive repression. It claimed a leader obsessed with security seeks conspirators. It framed that as a pattern seen in other regimes. That same commentary pointed to domestic crackdowns inside Russia. It mentioned reprivatization efforts moving at a fast pace. It also referenced arrests of mayors and vice governors. The writer framed those actions as a growing purge mechanism. It suggested officials were starting to fear they were next. It argued fear can eventually shift into preemptive betrayal. The idea was that striking first may seem safer. It said some might choose anticipation over loyalty. That reasoning was presented as a potential turning point. It did not claim such a turn had happened yet. It framed the system as tense and unstable. The commentary then turned openly sarcastic about Putin personally. It wished him luck with his so-called endeavor. It claimed the coming period would not be boring. That tone reflected opposition-style mockery rather than reporting. Still, it signaled a belief that repression was coming. It also implied elites would be forced to choose sides. The sarcasm framed purges as self-destructive and theatrical. It suggested paranoia could accelerate internal fractures. It treated insecurity as the Kremlin's defining feature. The passage aimed to ridicule and delegitimize leadership. It also hinted at growing elite uncertainty. The Venezuela claims were then repeated as a strategic shock. The same stream called it a heavy blow for Moscow. It suggested Moscow hoped for a bargain with Washington. The idea was that Russia would drop support for Caracas. In exchange, Washington would ignore Russia's actions in Ukraine. The claim presented this as the Kremlin's wishful thinking. It framed the Kremlin as seeking deals after public humiliation. It suggested Russia's foreign influence networks were unraveling. It also implied Moscow was losing leverage in the Americas. The storyline depended on the earlier Maduro arrest claim. It treated that claim as a turning point. A different voice then rejected the bargain idea outright. Igor Girkin, also known as Strelkov, was cited. Pro-war Russian commentators often quote him despite disputes. The text said Girkin mocked world division fantasies. It said he argued that such fantasies please only propaganda audiences. It claimed Western leaders would treat the idea with contempt. Girkin's framing was blunt and derisive toward Moscow. He suggested Russia's performance undermined any grand bargaining. He treated talk of shared spheres as delusional. He argued weakness invites pressure, not partnership. Girkin's quote focused on Russia's 4-year war results. He asked how division was possible without clear success. He contrasted the United States' speed in its own hemisphere. He said the United States acted decisively in one day. He claimed Russia had struggled in Ukraine for years. His phrasing mocked the comparison as humiliating for Moscow. The argument was about capability and credibility. He suggested military performance shapes diplomatic respect. He implied that prolonged failure destroys bargaining power. He framed Russia as stuck and exposed. His message was meant to sting Russian audiences. The same commentary listed other setbacks tied to the war. It mentioned Syria and the fall of Bashar al-Assad. It said Russia lost influence after that shift. It also referenced Russia stepping back from Libya and Sudan. It then added Venezuela as another alleged loss point. The list was presented as a cumulative geopolitical retreat. It implied Russia was bleeding positions across multiple regions. It also suggested Moscow's partners were unreliable or collapsing. The message was that foreign projects had failed strategically. It framed these events as humiliations with cascading consequences. It argued that the war accelerated those outcomes. Gherkin's comments also emphasized the costs of those ventures. It said Moscow invested hundreds of billions of dollars abroad. It also said Russian soldiers and mercenaries paid in lives. The text framed the outcomes as disastrous returns on investment. It suggested that money and manpower produced little durable influence. It described these adventures as costly, risky, and ultimately wasted. It implied Russia's elite sold a myth of global power. It argued that myth collapsed under real-world pressure. The point was not just moral failure, but competence failure. It framed the Kremlin as misreading its own limits. It said humiliation abroad hardened Western resolve. The final message argued that the West simply laughs at Moscow. It said there would be no global division with Russia. It claimed the Venezuela episode would harden the United States policy. It framed Russia as publicly humiliated once again. The through line was weakening leverage and rising internal fear. Energy strikes, blackouts, and propaganda narratives all intersected. Together, they showed vulnerability, instability, and a sharpening conflict cycle. If power outages spread and elites grow nervous, what breaks first? Share your view, subscribe, and add your thoughts below.